everyone. I'm Barbara Hamm Lee. Today, Another View is coming to you live from the Hampton Roads Convention Center here in Hampton, Virginia, the site of the National Association of Buffalo Soldiers and Troopers Motorcycle Club's annual convention. We're in front of a live audience to learn more about the history of the Buffalo Soldiers and how this modern-day philanthropic motorcycle club pays homage to the past while making a difference in the present. Lots of excitement and energy as we begin our 12th year on the radio. Let me hear it. Stay tuned. Another View will be right back after this news from NPR and WHRO News.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Another View, broadcasting live from the National Association of Buffalo Soldiers and Troopers Motorcycle Club Convention at the Hampton Roads Convention Center here in Hampton, Virginia. I'm Barbara Hamm Lee. It is so exciting to be back in front of a live studio audience, well, not even studio, back in front of a live audience, period, because I have spent far too many Thursdays sitting in that studio all by myself, talking to my guests on Zoom or on the phone because of COVID. So, and it's really exciting because we are entering today our 12th year on the radio. So thank you, listeners, so much for your support. Thank you, all of you who are here in our live audience today, and we really want to hear from you with our questions. But we have a great show for you today. We're going to be talking about the Buffalo Soldiers, and we're going to get the history behind Buffalo Soldiers, and then we're going to talk about what it means in modern day times today. So what is that history, and what is the motorcycle club all about, and how are they connecting the past and the present through their philanthropy? So here to talk about it from a historical perspective is our favorite historian, and she also has a brand new title. She is Endowed Professor of Virginia Black History and Culture at Norfolk State University, Dr. Cassandra Newby Alexander.
Thank you, Barbara.
Also joining us for perspective on the Buffalo Soldiers of today is Nathan Motown. I had to get the right nickname. Nathan Motown Mack, the national president of NAB Stmc. How are you, Nathan?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for being with us. Mr. Ken Dreammaker Thomas.
Yes.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
And he is the founder of the organization. And Jerome Smalls, and that is Jerome Biggie Smalls down there on the end. He is president of the Hampton Roads chapter.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it. All right, I got to start out by, first of all, where do these nicknames come from? And how do you get your nickname? How did you get yours, Motown? Motown, how did you get yours?
Mine was just because I'm from Detroit, and I love Motown music and love to ride and have a good time. So
did you select it yourself, or did the club give it to you?
Well, I had a chance to select my own, right? So
Okay.
others have given their names, right? But doing something they did wrong or something they did right. So you never know.
What about you, Biggie?
Pretty much the same thing. You know, my last name is Small, so it slided in pretty easy. That's what everybody called me anyway. So the club let me keep it. The chapter let me keep it.
And since you're the founder, you are the dream maker, sir.
Every day.
And he has a great story behind his name.
Okay, tell us.
Well, short story. Working as a young police officer, my partner and I had a call in the housing projects in Chicago, and we went up to about the 10th floor, and we went to an apartment. There were two little kids in there, and we asked where was their mommy, and the kids were 3 or 4, so they really couldn't tell us. We waited about 20 minutes, and the young lady came to the door, and of course we started in on her, but you could see her eyes was glassy, and she said she had been up on the 17th floor getting ready to jump off the building, commit suicide. So we talked to that young lady. We stayed there probably a good hour and a half, told her what she had to live for, beautiful kids. She was a little heavyweight. We says, hey, that's no problem. She said she didn't have a man, said that's no problem. But as things went on, she felt better, and we left and saw her about a year later on another call, and I got out of the car, and she said, "Officer Thomas, you're my dream maker." Oh. And my partner said, "What?" and I said, "Oh yeah." She said, "Remember me? I'm the young lady that was in the building. I lost weight. I got a man. I'm doing fine." Right. And she said, "You are my dream maker." And of course, my partner went and told the whole roll call next day, and the captain called me dream maker.
Wow, that is fantastic.
And it stayed with me.
Wow. Motown, let me ask you this. How many people are here in Hampton, and how far away have people come to visit us?
Well, we are about 1,500 deep today, and we have people as far away as Germany and Honolulu. So most of the riders came in from California. Myself, I rode in about 2,000 miles.
So you actually rode your motorcycle?
Yes, ma'am.
Wow.
That's what we do. We pound the ground hard to get to where we're going and then make a difference in the community.
That is fantastic. Well, we're going to talk to you guys a little bit more about what you're doing in the community and so forth. But I want to turn to you, Cassandra, to talk about the fact that Buffalo Soldiers is a tradition. It is a part of our history. It is a part of the Army. So can you give us some information about how the Buffalo Soldiers got started?
Sure. Thank you so much. And I really want to congratulate all of you for keeping this tradition alive and for showing, as you ride the motorcycles, what so many of the soldiers who were considered Buffalo Soldiers, what they did not only on horseback, but also on foot as infantrymen. So thank you so much. But to answer that particular question, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that after the Civil War, a number of African American men who were part of the United States colored troops were actually sent to Texas and sent to other places in the Midwest, Kansas and so forth, to oversee the protection of the construction of the railroads. America went full force into creating a transatlantic railroad system, and they wanted the soldiers, especially those who were part of the United States colored troops, to do one of the hardest jobs, which is to protect those soldiers in territories that were very dangerous. These were territories that America was taking over. They had laid claim to it, but they were taking over territories that were owned and controlled and lived on by native peoples out west and in the Midwest. And so they were constantly besieged with Indian attacks. But by 1866, Congress created 6 regiments of African American soldiers. The Army, by the way, had segregated itself very early on when African American men were created, or recruited, I should say, to come in as soldiers. And we would see this, everyone knows about the 54th Massachusetts Regiment, but there were others prior to that time, but they restricted them to all black units. That was not true of the Navy. African American men were segregated to certain positions or restricted to certain positions in the Navy, but the Army had them completely segregated. They could not have black officers. All the officers were non-commissioned officers who were black. You did have a few black surgeons who were assigned to those units, and so they carried those traditions with them. Congress did when they created the 6 black units. And of course, we would see the 9th and 10th Cavalry that were part of the 24th Regiment. We'd have the 25th. We would have the 38th, 39th, 40th, and 41st regiments created, and out of that you would see infantrymen and so forth. And these soldiers would serve during the Indian Wars. A lot of people don't even know that history, that from 1866 to 1867, we fought a war, a concerted effort to destroy the native peoples out in the West, to destroy their solidarity as people and to destroy them and their resistance to us taking over their lands. And so the men who would later be called the Buffalo Soldiers were sent out west to protect everyone all the soldiers and to protect the efforts by Americans to settle in those lands. So they were to protect the farmers. They were to protect those cattlemen. They were to protect all of that. And they were put in a line of fire because while they were assigned to protect, they were also in the middle of a lot of white hostility and white racism. And often if they were in towns, they were discriminated against. But on the plains, they weren't discriminated against because they were often by themselves, or they were with a few white units who needed their protection as well. How black soldiers homogeneously became known as the Buffalo Soldiers has more to do with legend than anything else. Nobody really knows the answer to that. There are a lot of stories about how the men who were assigned, the 10th Cavalry, who was assigned in Kansas, were fighting against the Cheyenne and the Sioux. And there's a lot of discussion about how those soldiers eventually were seen in an honorable way by the native peoples because of how they fought against them, because they would have battles against the native peoples for sometimes as long as 6 hours. If you can imagine being in the heat of battle for 6 hours. And so after a period of time, by 1867, that's when you would start to see the legend emerge. Even though those soldiers never referred to themselves as the Buffalo Soldiers, it would not be until really much later, not until about the Spanish-American War, that you would begin to see those soldiers embrace that title and make it their own and see this as a badge of honor.
So the research that I did, I saw two themes that seemed to run through in terms of how they got their name. One was as you said, the Native Americans were saying that the way that they fought was like a buffalo because it was strong and it was fierce, and the other was their woolly hair. So which way do you think it went? Any thoughts?
I think that we have to separate from our culture of racism. I do not believe that the native peoples saw hair in that way. I think that because the buffalo for the Plains Indians was everything. It was their lifeblood. And they respected the buffalo. That's why you have people getting killed and hurt today who think that buffaloes are pets and they can go out and pet them. They are not pets. You really wonder what's in the brains of Americans to think that buffalo are some meek, mild, domesticated animal. They are not. And they can be fierce. They are very protective. And they are seen as important to the lifeblood of the community. And I'm of that opinion that they saw African American men being in the situation that they were in a racist environment, and yet they showed honor and they did not treat the native peoples as somehow as savages. They saw them as enemies. And there's honor between soldiers who see one another not as one being a savage and the other being somehow superior, but rather as opponents, as enemies. And I think that's the line that I go with. That's in reading some of the accounts of the soldiers who served during that period, that's more the impression I get.
So to the dichotomy or the irony, I guess, of African Americans fighting Native Americans. And I wonder how they dealt with that from a mental perspective in terms of, one minority against another and the white man being the enemy of both. I mean, in that sense. How do you think that they reconciled their charge by the Army to do that?
I think for some it was very difficult, and we also have to add this. There were a number of Native Americans who intermingled with African Americans, and that had been going on for a century or more. actually for much longer than a century or more prior to that time. So Native peoples, there was not that clear line of division all the time. You think of Nat Love, who, was known as Deadwood Dick. He was part Cherokee and part black. The founder of Chicago was, part black and part Native. And so, that tradition goes back quite a distance. I think that the men who were referred to as the Buffalo Soldiers were about showing that they were protecting the American government and the American nation. They identified as Americans. And as a result, they were good soldiers. They were going to fight to protect the interests of America. The dichotomy is that America did not see them in that way. They did not honor them as full citizens, even though you had the 14th Amendment. They did not honor them as in the same way as white soldiers. They paid them a lot less than they paid white soldiers. They did not honor them in the accoutrements that they gave them, in the supplies and in the support. They were not honored in that way. But these men were not fighting to get all of that from the nation. They were fighting for their future, for the future generations, so that looking back, no one could say they were cowards, that they did not step up to the plate, that they were not willing to pay the ultimate sacrifice to protect and serve this nation.
Were there any female Buffalo Soldiers?
There was one female Buffalo Soldier that we know of, and I'm going to put that caveat. And the only reason we know about her is because she decided she was tired and didn't want to serve anymore. And when she had some health issues, and when she was complaining, and the doctor took care of her, that's when it was revealed she was a female. So if you can imagine this woman, and her name is escaping me right now. Kathy Williams, thank you. When she was you think this young woman, how in the world could these men not know that this young woman was a woman? Well, I think that some of them probably knew, but she was fighting. And this isn't the first time that a woman, whether the woman was white or African American, has served in the forces. And she was known as a tall, very muscular type of woman, and she probably was scary in terms of what she was capable of doing. And I'm reminded of the women of Dahomey, who were the primary warriors in that particular kingdom. When you would hear the drum beats of the women of the fighters, the soldiers of Dahomey, men fled, because they knew that when you sent the women in, if you sent them in to kill, everybody was killed. If you sent them in to take control, that's what happened. And that tradition continues in that area to this day.
Women power, absolutely. Yes. So knowing that rich history and what it all entails, I'm going to ask Ken, Dreammaker. You started the motorcycle club.
Yes.
Why?
Well, you got to remember, I was a law enforcement officer in Chicago at that time, and many of the clubs within Chicago, they would have the various parties and events, and those events weren't, shall we say, they're not the type of events I wanted to take my wife or children to. And I know I couldn't be around anything that was illicit, or just wasn't up to par. And I knew that there were primarily a lot of riders out here, individuals who wanted to be able to go to, who had the passion of riding motorcycles, but wanted to go to get together, be able to take their significant others with them, and be able to take their children if it was that type of event, and enjoy themselves. And being in law enforcement, you just couldn't be around some lawlessness.
So what year was it when you started, and how did you pull it together?
Actually, we used 1993, but I actually started the club in 1989. And I was still on the job working, and pulled it together because, like I said, there was a need for individuals who wanted to be in to do something, give back to our community, to wanted to do something that was respectful to African Americans. We wanted to get out there and say that we love motorcycling. We are an African American club, and we wanted to keep this history and tradition aligned with the Buffalo Soldiers. And the main thing was also showing our community that we're in the community and we're not negative, we're positive, we're giving back.
Well, Motown, let me ask you this. And when people see you all riding together, you know, some may characterize you as a gang. Is that right?
Sure. So people who don't know who we are would do that, but we're known across the country as, we call it, doing good in the hood. And so we are out there pounding the ground trying to make a difference. So people actually open up to us. We spread the history about what we do. And like the Buffalo Soldiers of yesterday, we still ride horses. Our horses just happen to be iron horses. And it's actually a, what you call icebreaker. So when we go into different communities, the children love to see, you know, the motorcycles as well as the adults. So we have a great time when we're out there, as we did yesterday.
So how do you become a member? Do you have to be in law enforcement, or or have served in the military, or?
We have people from everywhere: active duty, military, retired military, doctors, lawyers, business owners. We have some everything. But the focus is, one, being able to ride. We ride first, right? We educate on the history of the Buffalo Soldiers, and we do good in the hood. And we just want to preach that because that's who we are as a people. We go in and we want to make a difference no matter where we are.
So, Biggie, you are the president of the local chapter.
Yes, ma'am.
How many members, and what are some of the things that you guys have done in the Hampton Roads area specifically?
Yes, ma'am. We have 31 active members, along with some retirees. But in our neighborhood, ma'am, what we usually do is the food banks, give back to the women's shelters, some of the churches we're involved in as well as the detention centers as well. So we kind of do that, ma'am. So we got to give back to the community, and of course, just preach what dream set forth all those years ago.
So as motorcycle riders, and any of you can answer this question, what would you want others on the road to know as you're riding? Because that can be pretty intimidating when you see groups of motorcycles together and you're riding along. You're worried about safety, obviously, and so is the motorist. So what would you want to say to motorists when they see a group of you?
Give us a little space. Give us a little space so we don't have to create space. But, you know, I would tell you, first of all, we're the best looking club on the planet.
That's right.
Right? So as we're riding down the highway, a lot of people want to take pictures and all that, and it creates a issue sometimes, right? So with that being said, just give us a little space, and so we can get down the highway, get to our destination, so that our families know that we're okay.
Okay. And do you teach people how to ride?
Oh, we have a
Go ahead.
course going on right now. We have safety courses, the road captain course, and so we have people. I went to it yesterday or 2 days ago, and so we teach them to be better riders, and so they can take away, you know, good tips, right, and go back to their chapters and be able to teach those basic riding skills to each individual.
Okay. Now I read that the requirement is that you have to ride 750cc. What does that mean? And what kind of bike is that?
Well, first of all, 750 is a small bike.
Oh,
So
okay.
we'll allow you to come in, but after you ride with us for about a week, you'll get a bigger bike, right? Because you'll get tired of being left on the heels, right? So, but it's just the size of the bike, the engine. And so we just
Okay.
get out there, and by us riding long distance, you know, you need a bike that's more comfortable.
Okay. So let me ask you, what is it like when you're riding? Can you describe that feeling?
Well, most motorcyclists feel like it's a feeling of freedom. When you're on the open road and you're out in the wind and weather, even the rain elements, you're out there, it's you, the elements, and if you're with your brothers and sisters, that is one of the most beautiful feelings. Just to be out, whether you're on twos or threes. When I say, of course, threes, trikes, the three-wheelers now, but it's bonding. It gives you time to bond, gives you time to think, and of course, as Motown said, you're sharpening your skills out there. And it's a passion that goes from women, kids, men. I mean, you just name it. People who happen to ride tend to love motorcycling.
What got you into motorcycling in the first place, Motown?
When I was a kid, I used to see all the old adults. I called them old adults, I was about 10 years old, and you would see them on these motorcycles, right? And they would look like they was having a good time. So at 16, I kind of picked it up. But it's exciting. It's like Dream just said, being out there on the road with your brothers and sisters, it's nothing like it. The other night, we rode almost 12 straight hours in the rain, right? Our road captain, I'll leave him nameless, road runner, he dragged us for 12 hours in the rain, and I will tell you, I was never so proud of a group of people who hung in there and rode through all of that. And at the end of it, I mean, it's just a proud moment to see that because it builds self-confidence within us.
I was going to say, isn't that dangerous, though?
No,
I mean,
ma'am.
is it the pouring down rain you're talking about?
I'm pouring down rain. So we were wet for almost 18 total hours. So,
Wow.
but that's why you have good tires. We have safety things in place where we check people's tires and, the basic T-clocks type of stuff. And so these bikes are just like cars. You ride your car in the rain, you ride your bike in the rain.
Oh, my goodness. If you're just joining us, we're broadcasting in front of a live audience at the National Association of Buffalo Soldiers and Troopers Motorcycle Club Convention at the Hampton Roads Convention Center. My guests are historian and endowed professor of Virginia Black History and Culture at Norfolk State University, Dr. Cassandra Newby Alexander, Nathan Motown Mack, the national president of NABS TMC, Mr. Ken Dreammaker Thomas, who is a founder of the organization, and Jerome Biggie Smalls, who is president of the Hampton Roads chapter of the Buffalo Soldiers and Troopers Motorcycle Club. Do we have any questions from our audience? Do you guys have any questions that you would like to ask our guests? Normally, this is the time when I would be throwing out a phone number for people to call in. But if you're listening to us on the radio, please sit back and enjoy, and we're going to hear some questions from our studio audience. Yes, there's a question in the back there. Let's see. Hi, how are you?
Hello. Congratulations. Congratulations, Dr. Cassandra Alexander Newby, or Newby Alexander, on your recently endowed professorship.
Thank you.
I am delighted to be among you all. And I have two questions, actually. First is, who has written there's so much material out there on the Buffalo Soldier. I would like to know who's written an authoritative, definitive history of the Buffalo Soldiers that you could recommend. That's my first question.
Okay. Cassandra, you want to answer that?
I'm going to start with Benjamin Quarles, who's actually written a number of books on the soldiers during the American Revolution, the Civil War, and he's talked about the Buffalo Soldiers. There are a few others out there that I would not necessarily recommend. I would start with him. I know that there are some firsthand accounts of soldiers that were collected by Joseph T. Wilson in his book, The Black Phalanx. He was a person who was actually born in Portsmouth, Virginia, and he joined the Grand Army of the Republic. He's actually buried at Hampton University, the national burial ground for soldiers there. And he's someone who actually collected firsthand accounts of soldiers during the Civil War as well as afterwards. So some of those accounts were from Buffalo Soldiers, what we call Buffalo Soldiers. And so I always say, look at what the people had to say about their own lives, and then look at what historians have said and how they've interpreted it. And I also suggest that people look at John Hope Franklin's book that's been written numerous times, but Evelyn Higginbotham recently came out with a new revised book that looks at the Buffalo Soldier. So it gives you a history, but it incorporates it into the larger history of African Americans and the American nation. So that's also a good book to look at.
And you had another question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Cassandra. Thank you.
Yes.
I took notes. The second, I was on vacation in Alaska years ago, and we were in the Klondike region, and we went to a certain museum, and I'll never forget the lady, when she found out, Cassandra, we were from the Hampton Roads chapter of the association started by Carter G. Woodson, the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, the Hampton Roads chapter. She wanted to know more about the Buffalo Soldiers dealing with the Klondike situation. It seems as though they were trying to maintain order in that area, and she wanted to know more about the Buffalo Soldiers' involvement in maintaining order among, I guess, a lot of guys had made a lot of money with the gold, and they were getting, rowdy, celebrating, and the Buffalo Soldiers were called in that area to maintain order.
Yeah, in fact, the men were sent all over the world to maintain order. I'm thinking about the 24th, who were sent down to Cuba during the Spanish-American War, and even afterwards, they were sent. Charles Young, Colonel Charles Young was in charge in 1903. They were sent out to the Sequoia, to help to create the Sequoia forest, not forest, but the park. And so African American soldiers were sent to protect, sometimes to build roads, to bring back order to an area. I find it interesting because while they were sent to do that and protect that, once order was established, then they were pushed out and restricted to a fort or barracks that was located outside of that region. And so it's, America's had a very complicated view and tradition and approach to how they dealt with the Buffalo Soldiers. They wanted them to establish important things, but then at the same time, they became a liability because of racism.
Cassandra, didn't the Buffalo Soldiers also become park rangers at some point, or help with the building of
right,
the national parks?
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
The Sequoia forest was one of those areas that they helped to establish. And, they were building the roads in that particular forest. And a lot of, just like with the botanical gardens here in Norfolk, especially the black women who created that, it took and is taking too many years to recognize and to honor the work of these individuals in helping to create these important parks.
Other questions from the audience? Yes, there's one right here.
Thank you. I was wondering if there was a story, significance, or symbolism with the colors that you're wearing with the black.
Okay, the colors are gold and black. Am I right with that?
Original colors are navy and,
Oh.
and gold. So basically,
I don't see. Where's the Navy?
well, on the colors.
There
on
it
the
is.
back,
Okay, I
right?
see it. Okay.
So that's how we use it. But a lot of people use, the darker colors. And then we use the gold shirts, of course, so it's easier to see us and identify who we are. So, yeah.
How do you compare to other clubs, other motorcycle clubs?
Well, in the words of my founder here, which I call him Pops, right? We may not be the best, but we the best we know. So that's how we compare. So this is a great bunch of people, a great bunch of individuals who love to do what we do. And so we are all proud of what we do, right? So, we compare ourselves to no one. We just do what we do.
Dreammaker, when I see a lot of women here.
Yes.
And I assume that they ride. When you first started the club, were there a lot of women in the club?
Actually, the individuals I recruited did not want women to be a part of the club.
Oh.
And I told them, I said, no, my wife is going to be a part of this club. And, of course, it followed suit, since I was the boss, that the other members brought in their wives or significant others. And I want to tell you now, that was probably the best thing ever happened to us.
Why?
Because we as men, I was 39 years old and little rambunctious, and the guys were rambunctious, and we traditionally, motorcycle clubs party. That's what they did. That's all they did was party. But I wanted more. And I knew that the women, if you brought your wife or your significant other around, you were going to conduct yourself a certain way. and you had to respect our women, and that was in our original bylaws, respecting your women, your mates, and we're not gonna have no cursing around here, and none of this crazy stuff. And the image that I wanted to project to people was that we're a positive group, and we, like I said, and we made a difference, and I didn't want people to see us negatively.
Where is the furthest each of you has ever ridden? Let me start with you, Dreammaker.
Probably about 5 blocks from the house. No. I think actually Hampton Roads. In 2013 we were here. But these guys, when I say these are some riders, and our women too, these guys are riders. He can better answer that.
So for me, 6,700-mile trip. So going from where I live in El Paso to the East Coast, go up the coast, come back to the West Coast, and then you riding around trying to see the sights and then come back home. So we have a lot of riders that do that. We have a lot of riders here today that came from California. So that's a 3,000-mile one-way. The crew, he's not here, but my national SA, he rides 7 hours to pick me up, and then we start a ride. So especially if we come in east. So we have a lot of women, and I'm proud of them all the time, that get on those iron horses, and they go down that highway just like we do. And I ain't gonna lie, some of them ride better than we do.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Do we have any women in the audience that are riders?
Yeah.
You guys want to say something? Lisa, grab one of them so we can talk to them about what it's like to ride.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I love it. And you ask how big of a bike? If you
Yes.
turn around and see that bike sitting right behind you,
Uh-oh.
outside,
Yes.
that's mine. That's 1,700 cc's.
Okay.
And I rode down to Jacksonville, Florida, Mobile, Alabama. I'm heading west. I think next year I'm going to hit the West Coast.
Where are you from?
With my camera. I'm from New Jersey.
From New Jersey. So how long did it take you to get here?
It took 5 hours because you ride with me, you're going to have to stop so I can take pictures. So it took us 5 hours. I've been taking pictures of all the different love signs in Virginia.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's neat.
It's awesome. It's
That's
awesome. It's
neat.
great.
That is fantastic. So I know that you guys did something in the community because you give back to each community wherever you have your conventions. So who wants to talk about that? Biggie?
Yes, well, the national president went to some of the housing areas we had here, gave back some meals along with some school supplies for coming school year.
Oh,
so that's something we did on Tuesday, and we do it again today. And then also today, we'll try to get out to the detention center as well and talk to some of the younger kids at risk. Those are just a few things we did while we were here this week.
Mm-hmm. Why is that important to you, Motown?
Giving back is always important, paying it forward. For one thing that hits me, I grew up poor, and everybody needs help sometimes. And if we can go in and help others have a better life, even if it's just for a day, for a moment, just showing people that you care can change someone's life. We met a young man yesterday in the apartment complex where we went, spent 18 years in prison here. And before he went to prison, he was homeless, sleeping at the bus station. And so he changed his life around, and now he gives back in that same apartment complex that we went to, changing the lives of those youngsters, letting them know that they can do things better. And so affecting people like that to be involved, because you got to start with your own community, right? Be involved in your community to make a difference. And we always say, if I can change the life of one, then I'm successful, right? But with these group of people, of men and women that we have, they change people's lives daily. Reach out, because you never know. You can just say, hey, how you doing? And change someone's life to show somebody that you care. So that's what we're about. We just make that difference. And we're going to continue to do that because that's what we do, right?
How much does it cost to join?
$2.
$2?
$2.
$2. That's it?
Nah, so it's really not, I won't say it's a cost. It's the cost is your time. Your cost is the will to give back, right? It's not necessarily financial. It's one of those things that you want to come in and, again, make a difference. And, on one accord. And what brings us together are those iron horses that we use to get to where we're going.
Do you guys compete in terms of who has the best bike?
We do, and if you come out on Friday, right, we're going to have a sound competition, and we're going to have who has the prettiest bike, and we're going to have all that stuff going on.
Okay, what time? Tell us a little bit about that so we can tell our audience to come on out.
I think it's from 10 to 2. Matter of fact, so the escort that we had yesterday, some of the law enforcement guys, they are into the sound competition, so they're going to stop by with their bikes, personal bikes, right? And they're going to join into the sound competition. So we're going to have a good time doing it.
That is fantastic. Another question from our audience. Yes.
Yes, my name is Beowulf, Raleigh chapter. My question is for Dreammaker. Dreammaker, I know you stated that we are an African American motorcycle club. And what happens when people from different cultures come into our organization? They have beliefs that are contrary to our beliefs, like they might, well, this came up, they didn't want us to pray in the, in our meeting. We have chaplains, and they didn't want us to pray. So how do we handle stuff like that?
Dreammaker?
You got to remember, our group is very diverse. And when you talk about religion, it covers a wide spectrum. Yes, we do have Christians and Muslims and you name it. That I do recall an individual who could not, he felt he couldn't stay within the meeting when we would pray. Well, that's up to him. If you're from a different culture, what we want you to do as Buffalo Soldier or Trooper is to read about our history and adhere to our bylaws, what we're trying to do, what we're trying to give back as far as the wide spectrum. And as you know, we don't discriminate as far as race. Mm-hmm. If you're about this Buffalo Soldier history and writing and educating and giving back, then we welcome you. You know, if you hung up on your religion that you can't mix in, might not be the best club for you.
Mm. Another question from the audience, Lisa? Anyone? Yes, this young lady or gentleman. Sorry.
All right, this question is for Dream. I've been a member of this organization for 16 years. What were your thoughts when you started this organization? And what are your thoughts now that you see that you created a family? It's not an organization, this is a family. We support each other all over the country. And I just wonder, what's your vision for us moving forward?
Well, I want the club to continue to grow. As Motown said, I stated years ago that we want to ride, we want to educate, we want to give back. That covers quite a bit. And as far as, as I stated, I want the club to continue to grow, continue to do things. We're changing people's perception about motorcycle clubs and have been doing that for 28 years. So that's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Another question from our audience?
Yes, I have a question. On your jackets and in your literature, I see a gentleman. Who is that gentleman?
This
That
guy.
is I.
That is
on your jacket.
right here.
That's you.
That's me.
Oh,
It is I.
okay. Wonderful. And for the historian, you said that the regiments, of course, were all black. But on TV, a lot of times we see that the commanding officers were white. Was that the situation then, or were they totally black from top to bottom?
They were not totally black from top to bottom. The way that America segregated the military is that even when there was an all-black unit, there would always be all-white commanders. The nation would not recognize an officer who was black unless that person was a non-commissioned officer, or if they were a surgeon, which means they would not command troops. It really wouldn't be until Charles Young became head in 1903 that he then was the first black commander of what we see as the Buffalo Soldiers.
Okay. Another question from our audience?
Hi, my name is Valerie Jones-Williams. I'm actually part of the Tidewater chapter of Tuskegee Airmen, another organization.
Yes.
I saw the scholarships in your program. Could you tell us a little bit more about the scholarships that have been awarded?
Fantastic.
Yes, ma'am. So we venture out. Every chapter has a scholarship program, as well as our frontiers, we call them, which are, some people will say, regions. But overall this year, the national organization is awarding over $60,000 worth of scholarships to individuals. Our overall winner this year came from Meridian, Mississippi. A young lady, very smart. Her grandmother got her when she was very young. And when I tell you, really mannerable, personable, loving, and I'm saying that about the grandma, right? but her granddaughter, the winner, was just as good. But her grandmother instilled in her the importance of education and giving back. And so we were able to assist her in her endeavors of moving forward. And we're going to continue to do that. So last year, we gave out $60,000. This year, we gave out $60,000. And my goal for the organization next year is $100,000. And that in itself, that's just from the national organization as a whole. But each individual chapter, they do the same thing. You know, their scholarship, the financial assistance that they give may not be as much, but it's something to help that individual, to that young high school graduate that's getting ready to go into college.
Do you have chapters in every state?
We have 38 states.
38 states.
Yes.
So far. So I want each of you to think of a story. Something weird, wonderful, or crazy that has happened to you on a trip that you can share. Let me put that caveat there that you can share.
Wow.
Let me start with Biggie.
Ooh.
Wow.
Do you have a story?
I don't really have a story, but trips is about memories. And the biggest thing that happens on a trip really are breakdowns, because everybody gets laughed at when that happens, or somebody forgets something. Of course, and the most horrible thing is an accident. That's the thing that stays with that club, you know, for the duration of that club or chapter. So those are probably the biggest things for me that I've seen, and unfortunately I've seen both in my time as a member here.
And if somebody has an accident, I mean, I guess everybody is involved, even if not all the bikes are involved.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't leave anybody on the side of the road. If you see a bike, somebody's going to stay until it's cleared. You'll never see a biker with these colors on the road by himself if he's riding in a pack or she's riding in a pack. We will stay with them until they're squared away.
Okay.
So
all right.
Even if a bike break, I guess for me, it's the camaraderie. So just something the other night, we had someone, lose a phone, and we had been riding in the rain all night, and everybody hung in there together. Nobody was complaining like, let's go, because we are a family. We're going to stick together. And basically, we're going to go when everybody's ready to go. And so that's important. But there are stories. And if you look at some of these names, they got their names for doing something, right?
Oh, so the club can name you for something that you may do that.
And change your name. So, like, my name, fortunately, is Motown. However, I've never had a drink in my life, right? So my chapter wanted to change my name to Kool-Aid. So, because I was substandard in the drinking area, right? But I mean, we have a lot of different names, a lot of reasons those people got the names, and it's fun, right? It's fun. So I promise you might have one before we leave here. So, So keep up the good work. That's all I can tell you.
A story?
For me, it's the people. It's each and every one of you out there. It's our club members. I have met people throughout this country, from other countries. I don't know if Motown mentioned it, but we're actually bringing in our Germany chapter.
I saw people walking around with Germany on the back of their vests.
They have been on probation for a year.
Yes, sir.
And they will be officially brought in as a chapter during our meeting.
Oh, congratulations to them.
Yeah, it is a family. It's the people. And I tell you, I'm thrilled. Every time I go somewhere throughout the country, I'm welcomed. And what gets me is that 75% of our members don't know my real name, but they know Dreammaker. But I love the people.
And you love the people. So if someone wants to start riding, no matter what age, what do you suggest they do?
Take a riding course. Your local Harley-Davidson dealer offers courses. Some of the community colleges offer courses. And really, I'll tell you a story, like the Michigan chapter at one point, one of the husbands got sick and the wife was on the back and she couldn't get the bike back home because, he couldn't ride, so they're kind of stuck. So back then they had Leatherneck. Leatherneck told everybody, okay, all the women that ride on the back of the bikes, all you guys are going to class, you're going to learn how to ride. Something happens to your significant other, you'll be able to bring that bike back. So they all go to class, but then they all come back and buy their own motorcycles. So it didn't work out as well as he thought, right? So,
Yeah.
so hey, it's all about fun and riding.
So is purchasing a bike a personal thing? I mean, is it like, like a personal selection of a car? So different people like different things. What do you look for when you're trying to decide what kind of bike you want to ride?
Comfort. That's the biggest piece. A lot of us are like Biggie's bike. He's got to have that loud Harley, right? And he's got to look good with the big bars.
Oh, you do this thing up here with the holding the handlebars way up top?
Something like that. Something
like that.
Me, I have both. I have the Harley Davidson. I have the F6B. Anything less than 12 hours, probably ride a Harley. But over that, I'm looking for pure comfort. So I'm probably on my Gold Wing, going across country, which is what I rode out here.
Wow.
They're mentioning these names of bikes. I don't know if you're familiar with those bikes, but really the premier bike in America is the one that they discontinued, Victory.
See, this is where it creates the point of contention, right? So, but most of the bikes are personal choices, right? They're personal choices, and it's what makes you feel good that day, right? That's what you want to get on. So, we just welcome, again, anything over 750, but eventually you're going to have a big bike. But this Victory thing, is a reason why they went out of business.
Well, you can feel the camaraderie and feel the love of you guys. Where's your convention next year?
Tampa, Florida.
So everybody from this area and further north and further south, everybody's going south.
Everybody's going south. We're going to have a great time. We're already planning. We got the people here from Tampa on ground already, and we're looking forward to having a great time. Just like here, last night, everybody had a great time outside. And, the biggest thing is a lot of us, this is when we get this chance to see each other, and it's been a year. And so it's like a homecoming, right? So we all come and
Did you guys you didn't ride during the pandemic, did you?
Oh, yeah.
Did you really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
You gotta
everybody?
Oil got to go through the engine. So,
all the germs went through the engine. So you did ride then? Yes. You have 1 minute left. Okay. I understand we have the oldest member of the club in the audience, do we?
Yes, we do. And he's my personal confidant right there. That young man is 80 plus years old.
Oh, wow.
Thank you. And I'm not just the oldest male. It's my wife. She's right behind me. 77.
All right.
Oh, my. Listening audience, if you could see them, you would not believe that.
They're having a great time here, and we love doing what we do.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. We do truly appreciate that. So, well, guess what? We're out of time. Can you believe it? Thank you all so much for allowing us to be here with you all here and at the convention and to be able to tell the story of the Buffalo Soldiers. We wish you guys the very, very best, and we really appreciate that. And special thanks to the Hampton Roads Convention Center for hosting us today. And we also want to tell you that if you missed part of today's show or want to share it with a friend, please visit our website, anotherviewradio.org, and download the podcast. And be sure to check us out on Facebook, and I'm on Twitter at Barbara Hamm Lee. Next week on Another View, it's the Another View Roundtable with civil debates about today's current events. Our theme music is an original composition created especially for Another View by Jay Sennett. Lisa Godley is our show producer. Todd Washburn and Victor Bowen are our audio engineers, and Dr. Barry Graham monitored things back in the studio. I'm Barbara Hamm Lee. For those of you visiting, welcome to Hampton Roads. And since we stream our show live every Thursday at noon at anotherviewradio.org, we hope you will join our listening audience for Another View. Thanks for listening, everyone.